Hello everyone, this is Ben from GP Adventures and the Hobby Shop Dungeon, and I'm here to answer a question from the Facebook group. Rick Anderson was asking about the OSR. Um, what is the old school for us, for Ernie and I? It's a complicated question, right? Because we need to define what we're talking about. If we're talking about the movement that's going on online, a kind of revival of old school type of games, then it's gonna be extremely hard to pinpoint exactly what is old school and what isn't, because the definition varies with each and every one, right? And I don't think that it would be helpful to say the old school as a movement is this and not that, right? Because we all have our opinions on that, right? But at the end of the day, we want to be welcoming to gamers, right? In order for the old school revival to thrive, we need to be able to say, hey, you're playing fifth edition D&D, you're playing Torchbearer or Dungeon World or whatnot. Here we have some games that are actually, like the original games from the 70s and whatnot. And you know what? It's not because there is a plethora of games today that suddenly these games have become not fun to play. In fact, they play slightly differently, right? And they're pretty cool in their own right. So, would you like to come and play a game with us, or you know? And so, from that standpoint, just like putting up barriers and saying this is old school, this isn't really helpful in my opinion. Now, with that answered, um, if we're talking about personal definitions, that is, what is the old school for me and for Arnie, then we're getting somewhere, right? Um, for me, I mean, I'm pretty sure I know what Arnie would say, right? For Arnie, what is old school is the Lake Geneva type of game, right? That is original Dungeons and Dragons up to AD&D. That is the exploration game, right? That created, developed, and that's basically the game, the fantasy game, as it was called before being called Dungeons and Dragons, right? And so that's pretty much it, right? To me, uh, my definition will actually kind of plug into our needs, right? Um, to me, an old school game, the old school game, that is a game that approaches gameplay as if you were there. I think that was Michael Mornard who had a very good expression like this. Like the story of Dungeons and Dragons is not the story of the characters; it is a story of the world, right? So now imagine that you are running the game as referee, you're running the world itself, and the characters played by the players explore this world, right? And what is the adventure or the story is what occurs when those two things meet at the game table. In that sense, there is no storytelling going on in the preparation of the game. The story is really an emergent quality of gameplay itself. The referee plays various, denizens or opponents of the world uh, as best he can to reflect their personalities and their capabilities as they interact with the player characters. And from there, that's there's nothing that can't happen. There's no saving the pieces at the last moment because it would be convenient to the plot. There's no such thing as a plot that is prepared to play the game. What you prepare is the environment, the dungeon, the wilderness. What exists, and as a referee, you role play in your head what's going on, even outside of the sight of the players, right? The world is in motion around the player characters, and that's what essentially the old school game is for me. And for that, uh, original Dungeons and Dragons and Advanced First Edition are the best games that mesh with that, because they basically were built on these assumptions, right? On this gameplay, they were organically built out of playing the game at Gary's table, right? So that's basically how I see old school. Um, Now, again, my definition is not universal, right? And in fact, even though the old school as a movement started with the retro clones, right? Those reference documents that allow publishers to publish stuff for the old games under the open game license today, right? Um, I don't consider the old school renaissance to be limited to Dungeons and Dragons. You would tell me, like, like something like RuneQuest Second Edition, I would say, oh yeah, old school, right? Even stuff like Cyberpunk 2020, I would say, yeah, old school. Uh, so it's really a question for me of I know it when I see it. It's like porn, right? Uh, it's not, Tunnels and Trolls would be old school, and so on and so forth. Palladium fantasy, that's old school. Even stuff like no Top Secret is old school. Traveler. I could, like even Call of Cthulhu. Like if you're playing Call of Cthulhu as I was talking about as a sandbox world emulator, basically, instead of a finally scripted storytelling experience. To me, that would be totally old school. That's how I play and I run Call of Cthulhu, right? And basically, yeah, that's it. So it's all about how you approach the world and what is the epicenter of the game experience. And in this instance, it is not the cast of characters; it is the world, which then opens up all kinds of opportunities because the characters can die, can be replaced, the world goes on, and that is what in first edition parlance is the campaign. The campaign is the world in motion. It doesn't stop with a particular cast of characters, right? And that's as quickly as I could define it. I mean, that's a long conversation we could have about this. I'm sure we could go on in the comments. That would be awesome. I'm totally open to that kind of conversation, right? So that's